Hi, welcome back to the workshop. Following on from the last video where I made the wedding rings, this time I'm going to be making a ring box. I'll put a link to the rings in the corner if you want to check that out. Here are the walnut rings from the last video, and the box is going to be out of walnut too. So to start, I cut the blank down and find the centres. Then I mount the blank securely on the lathe, making sure everything's tightened up properly. Always a quick check to make sure that the rest is not going to catch. As with any wood turning, the first thing to do is get the blank round. Once I've got a cylinder, I use the parting tool to create a post for my chuck to hold on to. Swapping the drive centre for the chuck, I can now mount it back on the lathe. I start off by turning the ring box base. The plan is to have a pillar that the rings will slide onto. Once I'm happy with the size, I then turn a post at the other end which will allow me to mount the lid onto the chuck. I cut the lid end off, round off the top of the pillar. And give it a quick sand. It's starting to take shape nicely. Now I turn my attention to the lid. The first job is to drill a hole for the pillar to slide into. I give it a quick test fit. Next I create shoulder for the base to fit into and hollow out a space for the rings. Mounting the base back on the lathe, I work out roughly where the top of the box is going to be and then start cutting. A final pass down the length of the whole ring box just to make sure everything is nice and smooth and even. A quick sand and then some friction polish. I mount a plastic bar in my chuck in the tailstock to part the end of the box off the lathe. This will stop it just disappearing off once it's loose. Catches it nicely and doesn't end up on the floor. After drilling a hole in the base, I can flip it round to give it a polish. To hold the lid on, I'm going to use a brass peg. I don't have a bit of brass plate thick enough, so I start off by cutting a hinge. I'd love this to be gold, but that'd be really expensive. I rough the surface of the hinge up to allow the glue to key to it. And then to make it wider, I give it a bit of interest. I sandwich a piece of walnut between the two brass plates. Once the glue goes off, I can mark up the shape. I use a hacksaw to roughly cut the shape out. Then I mount it on my small vise and spend some time filing away down to the finished dimension. Using abrasive paper, I work all my way down to 2000 grit. I need to make a square hole for the peg to slot into. So over to the drill press to start off. At this point I have the old square peg round hole scenario. To fix this I use a needle file to square off the hole. And then finally, with a small flat file, I can work it to the finished dimension. I changed my mind about the base and mount it back on the lathe and cut in a small shoulder to accept some leather. This will hold the rings in place. To stop the rings visually disappearing into the base, I add some gold leaf. I start off by painting on some adhesive, and once it's tacky I then apply the imitation gold leaf. I apply glue round the pillar and wrap it with some white leather. And hold this white leather in place while the glue dries by wrapping string around it. So here's the finished base, top and peg, and of course the rings themselves. The rings slide onto the pillar, just enough friction to hold them in place, and on goes the top, and the peg slides in, holding everything together. I hope you like this project, and if you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.